Okay, here's something really striking to think about. What if you were feeling this, just absolute storm inside, grief, maybe panic, real rage,
Mm-hmm.
but your mind just couldn't find the words for it? Like
Hmm.
you feel this huge inner chaos. But if someone asks what's wrong or
Mm-hmm.
what are you feeling, just blank.
Yeah. Nothing.
And maybe even weirder or scarier is that those feelings, those raw, untranslated emotions, they don't just vanish. They end up showing up physically. Maybe it's a blinding migraine or that back pain that just won't quit.
Or digestive issues, yeah. Things doctors often struggle to pinpoint.
Exactly.
Well, that intense disconnect, that's precisely what we're diving into today. It's a state called alexithymia.
Alexithymia, okay.
And it's a really critical idea in understanding trauma and emotional health generally. It basically represents this profound gap,
Yeah.
this disconnection between what someone's experiencing emotionally deep down and their ability to actually name it or even consciously register it.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to really unpack that. Like, what happens when that internal emotional decoder just goes offline? How does that show up physically and, behaviorally?
Right.
And maybe most importantly, what are the ways, maybe surprising ways people can start to reconnect with that inner world?
Exactly. And the core definition, it's actually pretty stark if you look at the Greek roots. Alexithymia literally means not having words for feeling.
Not having words for feelings.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's clear from the research, this isn't just like bad luck or some personality quirk, is it? It's often a defense mechanism.
No, absolutely. A necessary one, often. The mind is essentially trying to slam the door on terrifying or completely overwhelming sensations, usually linked back to trauma. It does this through intense numbing.
Numbing, okay.
It's pure survival, really. The brain decides, nope, this input is way too dangerous to process right now. So
Right.
it just turns the volume way, way down or off completely, trying to keep the person functional, safe.
Makes sense in the short term.
Yep.
But the tragic part, as the sources really emphasize, is that when you shut down the channel for those awful feelings, you kind of lose the whole emotional remote control.
You do. You end up deadening your ability to feel the good stuff, too. Joy, connection, excitement. It all gets muted. And real self-awareness. It becomes incredibly difficult because you can't tell the difference between, say, mild annoyance and absolute terror. It all feels flat.
And this isn't just theoretical, right?
Yeah.
You can actually see evidence of this disconnection in the brain itself.
Yeah, absolutely. When people really struggle to identify what's going on inside their own bodies, you can often see it reflected structurally or at least functionally. Brain scans of individuals with chronic trauma, especially those high in alexithymic traits, they often show, well, surprisingly little activation in the brain's key self-sensing areas.
Self-sensing areas. Like, which ones are we talking about?
We're talking about regions like the insula, the medial prefrontal cortex, the MPFC, the anterior cingulate.
Okay, hang on. For someone maybe just tuning in, what do those parts, the insula and MPSC, what are they normally doing?
Good question. Think of them as your brain's internal monitoring system, your personal dashboard.
Yeah.
They're constantly tracking your internal state. Are you thirsty, tired, anxious, feeling full after eating? They provide that constant, often quiet feedback loop about what's happening inside your body.
Got it.
And the research shows the less people are tuned into their feelings, the less activity you actually see in those crucial self-sensing zones. They are, quite literally, out of touch with themselves.
Which leads to this huge problem, right? If that internal emotional signal can't get decoded, if the brain's not registering, I feel sad or I feel scared, where does all that energy, that raw feeling, actually go?
Well, it has to go somewhere. It gets rerouted.
Rerouted.
Yeah. Since the signal can't be translated internally into a recognized emotion like I feel fear, it sort of bypasses that conscious processing center and manifests directly as a physical problem. The body ends up speaking the language the mind has silenced.
Which explains that overlap with so many common physical complaints.
Exactly. It's a huge overlap. We're talking about things like chronic back and neck pain, generalized muscle aches, fibromyalgia, migraines.
Yeah.
Digestive issues are a big one, like irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, spastic colon. Chronic fatigue is another common manifestation. It's like the body is absorbing the shock of all that unprocessed emotion.
It really puts those symptoms in a different light.
It does. And here's a really shocking statistic to underscore just how direct that link can be. Traumatized children have been found to have 50 times the rate of asthma compared to their non-traumatized peers.
Wow. 50 times.
Yeah.
That's staggering. It makes the mind-body connection impossible to ignore there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so besides the body kind of breaking down under the strain, the sources also talk about substituting action for feeling, behavioral substitution.
Yes, exactly. It's like a functional workaround. If you can't articulate or even recognize the feeling, you focus on the doing.
Like the example they gave, asking someone how they'd feel if a truck was speeding towards them.
Right. An alexithymic person might respond something like, "How would I feel? I don't know. I'd get out of the way."
Complete focus on the action.
Total focus on the practical solution, the action needed for survival. They just skip right over the internal state, the panic, the fear. It's not processed as feeling.
But hang on, many people with these traits are actually pretty functional, right? They hold down jobs, they seem okay on the surface.
Oh, often highly functional, sometimes because they've suppressed the emotional noise.
So why would something basic like, say, eating or sleeping, things that seem instinctual, get messed up? Surely they know logically they need to sleep.
But the logic is disconnected from the body's actual signals. That internal monitoring system we talked about, it's offline for these cues, too.
So they can't read their own body.
Not reliably. They might genuinely mistake the physical sensations of anxiety for hunger cues and eat when they aren't hungry, or they might keep eating long after they're physically full because that internal stop signal, that feeling of satiation,
Right.
it's just muted or absent. So they struggle with basic self-care, not through lack of knowledge, but because they can't feel what their body needs moment to moment. Sleep, food, rest. It all becomes harder to regulate.
And it makes sense then, if you can't accurately read your own internal world, trying to connect deeply with someone else's emotions, that's got to be incredibly difficult.
It is. Intimate relationships often feel quite bleak or distant for these individuals.
Really, even if they're successful otherwise.
Yeah, they might excel professionally, partly because they're so good at suppressing messy emotions. But that same suppression makes deep, resonant connection with a partner really challenging. How can you share your inner world if you can't access it yourself? How can you truly empathize with another's feelings if your own are a mystery?
That's rough. So, okay, we've established this is fundamentally a bottom-up issue. The body's sending signals, maybe screaming them, but the brain's filtering system is blocking them. This implies you can't just think your way out of it, right? Talk therapy alone might not cut it.
Often, it doesn't, not initially anyway. The therapeutic goal has to be about rebuilding that connection, that bridge between the physical sensations and the eventual emotional recognition. It has to be a bottom-up approach. Meaning we need to focus on changing the underlying physiology first. We need to help the person change their relationship to their own bodily sensations. We're essentially trying to gently wake up those dormant, self-sensing brain areas, like the insula.
So recovery doesn't start with trying to find the word sad or angry. It starts lower down.
Much lower down. It starts with just noticing the raw physical sensations that lie underneath the emotions. That's the absolute first step. Not naming the emotion, but describing the feeling in the body.
Okay, so what kind of language are we talking about?
We're trying to build a vocabulary of pure sensation before tackling emotion. So guiding the person to describe physical feelings using really specific non-emotional words. Things like pressure, heat, muscular tension, tingling, maybe a caving in feeling or feeling hollow, that sort of thing.
Just the raw data from the body.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the building blocks.
That's a really key insight, focusing on the how it feels physically, not the why or the emotional label, at least at first. So what are the key instructions or phrases that help people start mapping those sensations?
Well, two of the simplest yet most powerful therapeutic phrases are just notice that and what happens next.
Notice that.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Then first, just bring gentle awareness to the sensation. Notice that tightness in your chest. Then, the crucial part, what happens next? This invites curiosity and observation without judgment. Does it intensify? Does it move? Does it change texture?
And over time, that helps link the sensation to an emotion.
Precisely. Once the sensation is noticed consistently, the next step is labeling that connection. For instance, okay, when I start to feel anxious, I notice that crushing sensation in my chest. You're building the bridge.
And what is just repeating that process, noticing, watching it change, teach the nervous system? Because it sounds like it's doing more than just labeling.
It teaches something fundamental that often gets lost in trauma. The fact that sensations change. They rise, they might reach a peak, but then they inevitably fall or shift. It reinforces the truth that all experience is transitory. That feeling, however intense, won't last forever in that exact state. That alone can be incredibly regulating.
That makes sense. It combats that feeling of being stuck in an awful sensation forever.
Exactly. And simple grounding exercises feed into this too. Just focusing on the literal weight of your body in the chair or feeling your feet planted firmly on the floor, it pulls you out of the overwhelming internal state and back into the physical reality of the present moment. Your body is here, now, and solid.
Which brings us squarely to these body-based healing methods. And it seems vital to stress why these physical approaches are often necessary, right?
Yeah.
Because a rational thinking brain,
Yeah.
it's often kind of powerless against these deep emotional alarm signals from the body.
Totally powerless, often. Logic just doesn't penetrate that deep-seated fear response. You can't think your way out of a physiological state of alarm. You have to regulate the physiology first.
So things like yoga come up a lot in the research.
Oh, hugely. Yoga is often described as just a fantastic way to help people gently regain a relationship with their inner world, to learn to comfortably inhabit their bodies again, maybe for the first time. It's the structured way of paying attention to sensation, to breath, to movement, all within a safe container.
And the results seem pretty compelling.
Very compelling. There are studies showing yoga significantly reduced PTSD symptoms, even in people who hadn't responded well to other treatments. And beyond symptoms, it dramatically improved their actual relationship with their bodies. People start saying things like, wow, I take care of my body now. That's a huge shift.
And a big part of yoga is the breath, isn't it?
Absolutely. Pranayama, or breath work. Simply taking slow, deep breaths and paying particular attention to making the exhalation longer than the inhalation that directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system.
The rest and digest system.
Exactly. It's like hitting the physiological brake pedal on that stress response. The vagus nerve picks up on that slow exhale and sends a signal back to the brain saying, essentially, okay, coast is clear, you can relax a bit.
But it's not only about stillness and breathing, is it? Movement and rhythm seem important too.
Critically important. Rhythmic activities are incredibly regulating for a nervous system stuck in high alert, in that fight-or-flight mode.
Why rhythm?
Think about it. Rhythm provides predictability, synchrony, it's grounding. Things like drumming, even just tapping your hands, group singing, dancing.
Martial arts too, right? Like Qigong.
Yes, Qigong, Tai Chi, even something like capoeira. Or super simple things, just rhythmically tossing a ball back and forth with someone, or gentle rocking. These activities help shift the nervous system out of that hyper-aroused state.
Then there's body work and touch, which sounds potentially complicated, given that trauma often involves boundary violations.
It is complex, you're right. People might desperately crave safe touch, but also be terrified of it.
So how does that work therapeutically?
Well, specific kinds of therapeutic touch, like skilled therapeutic massage, or modalities like Feldenkrais or craniosacral therapy, can be incredibly helpful. The goal is to help the mind slowly relearn that physical sensation can be safe, even pleasant.
The kind of touch must be key.
Absolutely crucial. It needs to be firm, predictable, and deeply reassuring. For someone who feels constantly unsafe or like they might just fragment, that kind of solid, respectful touch can help them reestablish a sense of their own physical boundaries, a feeling of, oh, okay, my body is solid, it has edges, I am contained. That allows them to finally stop being constantly on guard.
To feel safe in their own skin again.
Exactly.
And finally, there are therapies that focus on something called completing the action. This idea sounds really powerful. Sensoromotor psychotherapy, somatic experiencing.
It is powerful. The core idea is that the memory of helplessness, of being overwhelmed or trapped during a traumatic event, often gets stored physically. It's held in the body as chronic muscle tension, or that feeling of being frozen, unable to move.
So the therapy helps them finish the fight or the flight.
In a way, yes. In a safe therapeutic setting, the therapist helps the client tune into those physical impulses, those thwarted self-protective responses, the urge to push away, to hit, to run, to shield themselves. And then, crucially, they help the client physically enact or complete that movement, maybe in slow motion, maybe just as a small gesture.
And what happens when they do that?
When they finally get to physically experience, even symbolically, what it would have felt like to successfully defend themselves or escape, they often discharge enormous amounts of trapped energy. People describe this profound sense of relief, of completion, like a physiological story finally reaching its end.
Wow. Okay. So, pulling all this together from our deep dive, Alexithymia, this no words for feelings, it starts as a clever, even necessary survival tool. It shields the mind.
Definitely. Shields it from being completely overwhelmed by sensation, but the cost is high disconnection from yourself, from others, from your own body.
Right. And healing isn't about forcing words onto feelings that aren't being registered. It's about going underneath.
Exactly. It requires moving past the mind's logical defenses, kind of bypassing that cognitive block, and learning to first listen to the body's language, the language of sensation. It's fundamentally about changing your physiology, calming the nervous system so that the emotional narrative, the words, can eventually emerge naturally.
That's such a different way of thinking about emotional healing, which leads to our final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on.
Mm-hmm.
We get told so often, don't we, to think our way through problems,
Mm-hmm.
analyze them, strategize, use logic to fix our feelings.
Right, the cognitive approach.
Yeah. So what does it really mean for how we understand ourselves, for what healing even is, if some of the most profound recovery comes not from thinking harder, but from simply noticing?
Mm.
Noticing the, tingling in your hands or the heat in your face or that tight knot in your stomach, and just trusting that physical sensation, trusting it will rise and crest and eventually pass. It really suggests that maybe the deepest truths about who we are felt first, not thought.